Hello, everyone. Welcome for today's reflections and study. It's always a pleasure to be together and reflect about spirituality. For all of us who are here present, for those who may join us later on, let's start harmonizing our minds, harmonizing our hearts. Take some deep breath so that we can help us to calm, to center, which helps us to be available on our psychological, emotional, spiritual dimension for these new ideas, reflections, thoughts that will be presented for us to help to evolve, to progress in understanding the natural laws in the universe, which are relevant for all of us as immortal beings as we all are. Let's start opening our hearts and express our gratitude for all the good that the universe presented to us. Also our gratitude for all the experiences that we are facing, aiming to promote us, helping us to fortify ourselves. And in that way of inner harmonization, of centeredness, we start today's study. So today we have the member of the Spiritist Psychological Society, Andrea Barber, who will be facilitating the team for us, the good person. This team is presented according to the Spiritism, the Spiritist philosophy that Andrea will be presenting. So in that way, Andrea, I hand it over to you.
Thank you, Venise. Hi, everyone. Today we'll be reflecting on what means to be a truly good person through the lenses of Spiritism teachings from the book The Gospel According to Spiritism by Allan Kardec in the chapter 17th. But before, let's have a little introduction about Allan Kardec, Spiritism, and spirits. Hippolyte Léon Denisard Riveillon was born in 1804 in Lyon, France, and he passed away on 1869 Paris, France. So he is known as Allan Kardec, who was the founder of Spiritism. Allan Kardec organized and compiled methodically the teachings he received from various spirits through mediums, and he emphasized rationality, morality, and scientific investigation of spiritual phenomena. The main books by Allan Kardec are The Spirit's Book, 1857, which covers the nature of spirits, the afterlife, moral, ethical laws, and reincarnation. The Medium's Book, 1861, a guide for mediums and those studying spirit communication. The Gospel According to Spiritism, 1864, interprets the moral teachings of Jesus through the lens of Spiritism. Heaven and Hell, 1865, discusses the fate of souls after death, based on spirit testimonies. The Genesis, Miracles, and Predictions According to Spiritism, 1868, offers a spiritist interpretation of creation, miracles, and prophecy. So let's reflect on Spiritism. So Spiritism, on the book What is Spiritism by Allan Kardec, says, and I quote, is the science that deals with the nature, origin, and destiny of spirits and their relationship with the corporeal world. So it's a science because it studies observable phenomena related to spirit manifestations and communication. A philosophy because it explores ethical teachings and the purpose of life. A religion because it's based on Jesus' teachings. And on a speech at the Parisian Society of Spiritist Studies, 1868, says, and I quote, as a religious, it is the religion of the heart. So on the book Education According to Spiritism by Dora Incontri, Pestalozzi says, and I quote, "Pedagogical love is that which manages to awaken in others, be it a child, a student, a spouse, a friend, a sibling, or humanity, the desire for good, the longing for light, the irresistible will to grow, the feeling of God, and the certainty of the path to follow." These definitions set Spiritism apart from mere belief of systems or religions. Allan Kardec emphasized its empirical and rational foundation. Spiritism helps us to change our lenses, giving us new perspectives. So, teaching us to see life differently, events differently, helps us to give a new meaning to what we go through, so we can rewrite our day with clarity, tranquility, feeling lighter. Let's talk about spirits. So we are immortal spirits, thinking beings with consciousness. So immortal spirits, we live forever as spirits, always learning and growing. As conscious beings, we have the power to reshape, to re-educate ourselves towards the new and the good. Begin with our thoughts and go into actions that over time bring us a sense of lightness and happiness as we fulfill our duties. To live on earth, the spirit uses a physical body. But between the spirit and the body, there is a spiritual body called perispirit. So we are made of three parts: spirit, individual essence, immortal self. Perispirit, it's semi-material, is our spiritual body that connects the spirit to the physical body. And physical body, it's material, is our body you use while living on earth. So when we die, the physical body stays behind, but us, spirit, and our perispirit continue living in the spiritual world. So, related to this lecture today, to this study today, who is the good person? Allan Kardec listed a few qualities: humility, kindness, justice, self-awareness, sincerity, charity, focus on our inner transformation over our external appearances. So the good person is someone who fully practices the law of justice, love, and charity. This person has faith in God, is humble, detached from material possessions, acts with kindness, understanding, and forgiveness, and always looks for the good of others. So today, let's try to bring these teachings to ourselves, to our own experiences, because as we think and we feel differently, we all do differently on our experiences and our daily lives. So let's try to bring it to ourselves. Let's start now the slides. The truly good person is one who complies with the laws of justice, love, and charity in their highest degree of purity. If they examine their conscience concerning their own actions, they will ask themselves if they have violated those laws, if they have practiced any evil, if they have done all the good that was possible, if they have voluntarily disregarded any occasion to be useful, if anyone has any complaint to make of them, and finally, if they have done to others everything that they would wish done to themselves. So justice in Spiritism refers us to responsibility, love, cause and effect, and free will. So free will is the ability to choose between right and wrong, and to grow learning from our choices. Divaldo says, and I quote, Divaldo Pereira Franco says, and I quote, "Free will is not about the freedom to make mistakes. It's about the freedom to learn. And in learning, we make mistakes, correct them, and get it right." According to Allan Kardec, true justice is based on the natural laws, divine laws, or laws of love. which are the laws of God. It govern the universe, and they are written in every person's conscience to improve ourselves. For example, when we feel hurt or anger towards someone, our stomach aches, we can't sleep well, the food doesn't taste good. Why? Because we weren't created for that. When we are happy, we help others, we feel a sense of well being. Why? Because we were created in the image and likeness of God. So, therefore, we were created to love, to forgive, to help, to be good. In the Spirit's book, the Spirits explain that the sense of justice is innate and develops as the Spirit evolves morally and intellectually, and says, and I quote, justice consists in respecting the rights of others. This is on the Spirit's book, question 875. This justice is not merely legal or social, it's ethical and spiritual, grounded in love for one's neighbors and in charity. So the Justice Foundation is, as you know, the golden rule, doing to others what you'd like done to us. Justice is also closely connected to the ideas of equality, fraternity, and freedom. So let's now break down the three ideas. So equality. Spiritism teaches us that God created all of us, spirits simple and ignorant, leaving each one of us the responsibility to progress and achieve perfection. Spiritually, no one is superior or inferior. Everyone is on their own journey at their own pace, but made of the same essence, created by God with love to love. So let's see now fraternity. In Spiritism, fraternity means caring for one another like brothers and sisters. It's the understanding that we are all children of the same Father, and we are all on a journey to grow and improve through our self-transformation. So fraternity isn't just a feeling, it's about living in uniting, helping each other, and sharing responsibility. So let's reflect now on freedom or liberty. So in Spiritism, liberty means having the freedom to think, to choose, to do as we wish. But with the freedom comes responsibility. All of us, immortal beings, are responsible for our actions and face the results through the law of cause and effect. As we grow and learn, we understand that real freedom is choosing to do good, not controlled by selfishness and pride. On the Spirit's book, question 843 says, and I quote, man is free to act. Without free will, he would be a machine. So coming back now to the good person, we saw justice. Now we're going to see about love. So love. Love begins with respect for ourselves, for our perspectives, for our limitations, and equally for others. To love is to acknowledge that just as we are free to be who we are, to think our thoughts, to feel our emotions, others are too, because we are all unique, we are all different, and we are all valuable in God's eyes. True love is not about changing anyone, but about accepting each person as they are, with kindness and understanding. There is one message, it's called Serve and Love by Spirit Dias da Cruz. He says, and I quote, take advantage of the generous days that are renewed, full of opportunities to live on earth your mark of love and service. Multiply the talents of your heart, offering them in the service of the Father, allowing the light of comfort, solace, and joy to shine in the lives of your neighbors, friends, and family. For every light shared with a brother's heart is a multiplied blessing that generously returns to your own life. So let's see now about charity. The Gospel According to Spiritism by Allan Kardec, chapter 15, the spirit of Saint Vicente de Paul explains charity in Jesus' way, and I quote, is benevolence for everyone, indulgence for the imperfections of others, and forgiveness of offenses. So charity purifies the soul, teaches humility, and brings us closer to our true purpose. It's a way of life. We can show charity through kindness, through compassion, patience, and understanding towards others and us. How can you collaborate with charity on our daily life? Let's bring a few examples. For example, the material help. When we see people in need, we try to help by sharing clothes or food. The simple gestures can make significant difference to someone struggling. Let's see charity being kind and present. Charity is not only about giving things, but also giving ourselves. We try to listen patiently to people who need someone to talk to, whether it's a friend or a stranger. Sometimes just listening can ease someone's burden. Let's see charity on a volunteer activity. I take part in community activities or group events to help others and share kindness with more people. For example, my daughter and I, we joined a knitting club a few years before locking down, and the ladies were teaching us how to knit clothes for babies and blankets for elderly. So we feel very, very fulfilled, and for sure, it feeds so much our soul. So, for example, charity at work and school. We try to be helpful and supportive to those around us, whether it's sharing knowledge or encouraging someone or helping someone with a problem. So let's see now charity at home. Home is our first society. So by the Spirit André Luiz, the Spirit of Truth, psychographed by Chico Xavier in Valdo Vieira, question 42, says, and I quote, motherhood and fatherhood are sublime ministries. The home, the first school. Parents, the first teachers. The first day of life, the child's first lesson. And by the Spirit Emmanuel, in the book The Consoler, psychographed by Francisco Cândido Xavier, question 110, says, and I quote, the best school is still the home. The best school is still the home, where the individual must receive the foundations of feeling and character. The educational institutions of the world can indeed instruct, but only the family institute can educate. For this reason, the university can shape the citizen, but only the home can build the human being. So Spirit André Luiz, coming back to Spirit André Luiz, he says that home is the first place where we should practice the spiritual values that we want to develop. It doesn't help to be kind and caring outside if at home we are impatient, careless, or indifferent to our duties. The idea is that domestic work is also an opportunity for our spiritual growth because it involves discipline, cooperation, humility, and love on ourselves and for others, especially for one's family. So how can you do that? Using kind words, sharing tasks, or emotional support if is needed. The book Sinal Verde, psychographed by Chico Xavier, by the Spirit André Luiz, says, and I quote, collaborate in household work as much as possible. Service at home is service in favor of your own happiness. So let's go now to this second slide. They deposit their faith in God, in His goodness, in His justice, and in His wisdom. They know that without His permission, nothing can happen, so they submit themselves in all things to His will. So God, our Father of love, is just, is good, and wise. Therefore, we trust everything happens for a reason, because nothing happens without his permission. This leads us to a calm resignation and acceptance of life's trials, with understanding and trusting that all the experiences teaches us the purpose in our spiritual evolution. For example, when my parents passed away a few years ago before lockdown, on a thinking level, I could understand studying Spiritism, but emotionally I struggled, lacking on acceptance and resignation. So imagine that we are like a bird with two wings. One wing represents reason, our logical thinking. The other wing represents emotion, our feelings. Our goal in life is to find balance between these two wings. When reason and emotion work together in harmony, we can face challenges, make wise decisions, and live a more meaningful and fulfilling life. So, to help me as well with this death situation, Spiritism helps us to understand that when someone passes away, the pain doesn't go away, but the despair does. Death and disincarnation is not the end of life, but rather a transition to another form of existence. Spiritism teaches that the soul remains alive and conscious, and that bonds of love between souls are not broken by physical death. In that sense, Spiritism doesn't promise the end of pain, especially the natural pain of missing someone we love, but it does help ease despair, which often comes from the feeling of total loss or uncertainty about the fate of those who have died. With the Spiritist understanding of the soul's immortality, the continuation of life after death, the possibility of a future rejoining with loved ones, and even communication between the material and spiritual worlds, grief becomes more bearable. The pain of separation remains, but it's filled with hope, faith, and love rather than hopelessness. And I've got another example as well related to the nothing happens without God's permission. So the Spirit Andrea Luiz tells us a case on the book Missionaries of the Light, psychographed by Chico Xavier, which involves a young lady, a spirit, who, during her planning her next reincarnation, asks for modifications to her future physical body. She asks to the spirit Manasseh, who is a highly specialized spiritual technician in genetics and reincarnation. With her great spiritual maturity, she realizes that being born in a physical, beautiful body might represent a moral risk to her, exposing her to her own temptations, vanity, and situations that might slow down her spiritual progress. So this is a good example for us that nothing happens by chance. So let's go to the next slide. The good people have faith in the future, which is the reason to put spiritual possessions before those of temporary nature. They know that all vicissitudes of life, all pain, and all deceptions are trials or atonements, and accept them without murmuring. I have here an example for us to illustrate this slide. With the example, let's always bring back to ourselves where we are emotionally. Let's see if you can also overcome our limitations with the example I'm giving for her now. For example, there is a friend whose husband had not been faithful during their marriage. Despite the betrayal, when he fell in, she chose to care for him until the day he passed away. One day, a neighbor, surprised by her actions, asked her, "Why are you taking care of him after everything he did to you?" And she simply replied, "For my own spiritual growth." So let's reflect on this story specifically, but bring it back to us. So in her story is a powerful example of forgiveness, detachment, and deep spiritual maturity. Rather than holding on to resentment or bitterness, she chose compassion. She didn't deny what happened, but she also didn't let it define her. So she worked through forgiveness. How can we work through forgiveness? So she understood that forgiveness wasn't for him. It was for her own peace and freedom. What about ego? Let's see. Instead of acting from wounded pride, she acted from a place of humility and inner strength, transcending her limitations. And also thinking about unconditional love and service. So she cared for him not because he deserved it, but because she chose to embody love. The more we grow spiritually in goodness, the more we serve others. And living spirituality, she didn't just speak about spiritual values. She lived them in most difficult moments, not in words, but through her actions. On the spiritual growth means that every challenge is an opportunity to rise, to heal, and to evolve. Sometimes the most painful experiences are the ones that shape the most beautiful parts of our soul. Yes, it's very powerful. But it's good for us to realize that we all go through situations in life that we are prepared to overcome them. So the next slide says, men and women who possess the sentiments of charity and love do good for the sake of goodness, without waiting for payment of any kind. They repay evil with good, take up the defense of the weak against the strong, and always sacrifice their own interests in the name of justice. So, on the book, studying the book of mediums in Project Manuel Filomeno de Miranda says, and I quote, the best way to overcome evil is not by being against anything or anyone, but simply by standing for what is good, for progress, for the ideals of love and justice. I've got here an example of Mahatma Gandhi to illustrate this slide. So Mahatma Gandhi was a leader in India, and he always emphasized simplicity, self-discipline, social justice, and he's known for his philosophy of no-violent resistance. Gandhi was punched twice by a cruel soldier. So when Gandhi stood up for the second time, the soldier asked him who was the coward leader he was following, and Gandhi responded, this person on the cross hanging around your neck. So the soldier instantly fell on his knees and cried regretfully. Gandhi has also another phrase who says, and I quote, be the change you wish to see in the world. It means living the way you want the world to be. It's about acting according to our virtues and showing others by our example. San Francisco of Assisi said, if it's necessary, use your words. So on the book Studying the Book of Mediums in the Project Manuel Filomeno de Miranda says, and I quote, limit moments are for us opportunities for inner growth, to achieve victory of ourselves. If we overcome these moments, we feel the peace of God, which transcends all understanding. Let's see now the next one. This kind of people encounter satisfaction in the benefits they are able to spread, in the service they are able to render, in the happinesses they promote, in the tears they are able to dry, and in the consolation they offer to those who are afflicted. Their first impulse is always to think of others before themselves and to look after these interests before looking after their own. On the other hand, the selfish person always calculates the benefits and losses arising from any generous actions. So this paragraph describes selfless individuals. We find fulfillment not in a personal gain, but in the joy, comfort, and well-being we bring each other's. Our actions are guided by empathy and selflessness, placing others' needs above our own. On the other hand, selfishness is seen in Spiritism as one of the biggest obstacles to inner transformation. For example, a selfish person sees generosity through a lens of a personal cost, always weighing the good deeds against what they might lose. keeping them attached to materialism and ego. Allan Kardec emphasizes that the more selfless we become, the more we are aligned with the natural laws or God's laws, especially the law of charity. Therefore, selflessness is a mark of spiritual elevation. Charity and compassion are fundamental virtues, and selfishness delays our moral, ethical, and spiritual progress. So the next slide. The good person is always good, humane, and benevolent with everyone, without distinctions as to race or creed, because they see all men and women as brothers and sisters. They respect all sincere convictions in others and never launch a reprobation against those who think otherwise. So a good person is good to everyone, sees all people as equals, and respects different beliefs without judging others. Chico Xavier once visited a prison called Carandiru in São Paulo, Brazil. He was invited by a prison director and stayed there for about 5 hours. During that time, he talked to around 1,500 prisoners one by one. After, some people asked if he felt scared or uncomfortable being around so many prisoners, and Chico Xavier said, "No, I don't." He said that he felt just like them, that everyone makes mistakes and has problems to face. He believes that all people are equal, no matter where they are or what they have done. This story shows us how kind and humble Chico Xavier was and is. He treated everyone with love and respect. Chico Xavier once asked the Spirit Emmanuel, who are the prisoners? And Emmanuel answered, all of us who are discovered. So in this situation, prisoners are when we are stuck to our illusions, our ignorance, and discovered when we are aware of our limitations, giving us the chance to work on them, improving ourselves. Yes, thank God you've got these beautiful, these friends to help us to move on, to by examples for us as well. And the next slide. Charity guides them in every circumstance, because they know that those who prejudice others with evil words, who injure others with their pride by disregarding their susceptibilities, or who, knowing they could avoid it, do not draw back at the thought of causing suffering, or yet contrariety, however small, lack the obligation to love one's neighbors, and so do not deserve the clemency of the Lord. So this slide highlights the responsibility to always act with love and considerations towards others and us. Good people always act with kindness because they know that hurting others, even in small ways, means not to care about them. Therefore, not to care about them ourselves. Why? Because everything we are doing, we are thinking, we are feeling towards the others, first, we are doing to ourselves, on a bad way or in a good, healthy way. For example, a good person won't make fun of someone's mistakes at work, even as a joke, because they know it might hurt the person's feelings, and that's not caring about them being different. According to Spiritism, Allan Kardec emphasizes that these two vices, selfishness and pride, are the greatest obstacles to our spiritual evolution, and are identified as the roots of our moral imperfection or ethical shortcomings. For example, selfishness, being indifferent to the other's suffering or needed to dominate; pride, which blinds us to our own faults, such as gossiping, slandering, arrogance, struggling to forgive. Allan Kardec points out that these are not just small problems, but the roots of much of the pain and suffering we experience in ourselves and in society. So the next slide They do not harbor rancor, hate, nor yet desire vengeance. Instead, they follow the example of Jesus by forgiving and forgetting all offenses, only remembering that benefits received, because they know that we ourselves should be forgiven only in as much as we are able to forgive others. Here we can think about forgiveness. To forgive is to cure our own hate. It suggests that forgiveness is not just about releasing someone else from blame. It's a form of self-healing. Holding on to hate, resentment, or anger often causes more harm to ourselves than to the person we are upset with. Forgiveness then becomes a way to free ourselves from the emotional burden and regain inner peace. We have here an example of Nelson Mandela's story to illustrate the depth of his forgiveness. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison for opposing apartheid, the brutal system of racial segregation in South Africa. He was treated harshly, cruelly, forced to do hard labor, and often denied basic rights. But when he was released in 1990, instead of seeking revenge, he chose forgiveness and reconciliation. One of the most remarkable moments came after he became president of South Africa in 1994, when he invited one of his prison guards to his celebration. He said, and I quote, "If I didn't leave my anger behind, I would still be in prison." So here, Nelson Mandela freed himself from hate and resentment. He chose to forgive. He was working on his self-control, on his compassion. And this showed us that forgiveness is more powerful than hate. So Nelson Mandela helped to bring peace to people in the country that was full of anger and peace and fear. Sorry, the people full of anger and fear. So the next one. This kind of people are indulgent with the weaknesses of others because they know that they also need indulgence. Remembering that Christ said, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone." They do not take pleasure in looking for defects in others, nor in calling attention to them. And if necessity obliges them to do so, they always try to look for the good qualities so as to lessen the bad ones. I would like to read the next one as well, please. So good people study their own imperfections and work unceasingly to combat them using all their strength, so that tomorrow they will be able to say that they are just a little better than they were the day before. So good people are compassionate towards other limitations and imperfections, focus on their own self-improvement, and treat others with humility, not unkindness. So let us try to focus on our self-improvement and to try to overcome our limitations. Let's consider some examples, make sure that you always focus on solutions. For example, at work, someone makes a mistake on a project. Instead of criticizing them in front of others or blaming them harshly, we could say, because we are really practicing being a good person. We all mess up sometimes. Let's see how we can fix together. There is an example as well about Neto Guimarães, who was a well-known Spiritist speaker and educator, shared a story about an event where someone spilled milk on the floor. Some people complained and tried to find who did it, but others quickly went to buy more milk to fix the problem. So, always focusing and not wasting time blaming people, but focus on the solution. Be flexible. So let's see, for example, in the family. A child breaks something at home. Instead of being angry, a parent calmly could say, if I know you didn't mean to, let's talk about how to be more careful next time. So there is a saying in Brazil, accidents can happen to anyone, even in the best families. So this is we can work our self-control. Let's see practicing a good person among friends. So, for example, a friend cancels plans at the last minute. Instead of getting upset or holding rancor, you can think, they must have their reasons. I've done that same before. So let's see how we can practice being a good person with ourselves. We react badly to a situation and later we regret it. So instead of feeling guilty or denial, we can reflect. I wasn't at my best today, but I will do better tomorrow. One thing that you also learn in Spiritism is the hope. Always hopeful. And obviously, make sure you do something, go to action and do differently. Otherwise, you carry on the same. So let's give some examples. Be a good person in marriage. Always work on ourselves. We notice some unhealthy habits that bothers us. For example, leaving things messy, being late, forgetting dates, etc., etc. Instead of nagging or criticizing, we can reflect. I also have unhealthy habits that are not easy to change. So let me be patient while you grow together. Growing together here related to respecting each other. So also we recognize that sometimes we are impatient, defensive, or moody. Instead of justifying it, we could think, I want to be a better partner than I was yesterday. What can I do to change myself today? Because it's always good to do good, not expecting from the others. We do our part, we do our best. In Spiritism, loving marriage is a daily practice of forgiveness, humility, and self reflection. Not trying to fix the other, but trying to work on ourselves, overcoming our limitations. So, the next paragraph, the good person never tries to emphasize the importance of their own spirit or talents at the expense of others. But on the contrary, they take every opportunity to highlight in others whatever these people might have that is useful. They are not conceited about their riches, nor of any personal advantage, knowing that everything that has been given to them might be taken away. So this slide, we can reflect on our spiritual evolution by humbly, kindness rather than ego. Spiritism emphasizes that all our abilities, wealth, or even positions of power are tools for our spiritual development and not signs of superiority. The good person understands that they are temporary gifts and might be taken away at any time. So, the true spiritual wealth lies in how you use these resources in service of others. The Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 16, you can serve both God and Mammon says, and I quote, whatever person has comes from God, and it is to God that it must return. Nothing really belongs to us, not even our own bodies. Everything is given to us to use for a while, so you should use it to do good. Spiritism teaches that being kind and helping others is important. A good person supports and encourages others and is happy when others do well. Allan Kardec says that someone who is truly growing spiritually treats everyone like family and is glad to see others improve. So let's go to the next slide. They use but do not abuse the possessions which have been conceded to them because they are only a deposit for which they will be required to give a full account. They know that the most detrimental employment that these riches can be put to is the satisfaction of their own passions. So a good person uses what they have temporarily, wisely, and shares with others. They know God gave them everything and will ask them how they used it. So they don't waste things or use them for selfish reasons. Instead, they do good and help others. So let's break down a little bit this phrase. God gives us everything we need: free will, talents, opportunities, and a sense of right and wrong. God doesn't ask us directly how you use these gifts. Instead, our own conscience naturally makes us reflect on whether we use them well or not. So when it says God asks us how we used what He gave us, it really means we ask ourselves in our conscience how we use those gifts. So we are our own judges, guided by God's laws written in our hearts, our conscience. So let's see now a few practical examples of possessions wisely or and not selfishly. So let's say, for example, money. The money, if I spend in a bad way, is spending only on ourselves, buy things unnecessarily. In a good way, in a wise way, being responsible, paying our bills, helping people who need it, or supporting charitable causes, for example. Let's say an example using the time with our family. In a bad way, ignoring our family, staying on our phone or TV all the time, wasting electricity, wasting water. And let's say how you use time with family in a wise way. Spending time together with love, with respect, helping at home, talking politely to each other. Let's see with our time. How can we use our time in a bad way? Wasting time on things that don't help us or others, like, for example, gossiping, reinforcing unhealthy habits. And let's see how we can use our time in a good way. Using time to learn, to help someone, or to read a constructive book to enlighten our thoughts. Let's see how we can use our talents, what we are good at, in a bad way. Using our skills only to get attention, or sometimes even only to get money. In a good way, doing something kind with what we know, helping others, for example. In a leadership, on the leadership, using in a bad way, bossing people around or being unfair. And in a good way, being kind, fair, and helping others to grow. So the next slide says, if then, by social order, a good person has been placed in a position of command over their fellow creatures, they treated them with kindness and benevolence, because before God all men are equal. Here you see Kardec emphasizing that the true goodness is not revealed by power or status, but by how one uses that power. In Spiritism, authority is not a privilege of pride, but a responsibility to serve with humility. The good person motivates, never dominates. Then continuing. They use their authority to raise up the morality of these people and never to crush them with their own pride. They avoid everything which might cause a subordinate position to be even more painful than necessary. This reflects the deep sense of responsibility that Spiritism associates with leadership. It's not enough to hold a position. We must ask, are we helping others to grow? Or we are making their path harder? So the next slide says, on the part of those who are subordinate, let it be understood that the duties which go with this position must be clearly appreciated and consciously fulfilled. So Kardec calls for harmony and mutual respect. Those in command must lead with humility, and those under authority must act with dignity and understanding. Only when all of us do our part with respect and care can real spiritual growth happen. There is a phrase by Brother José. He says, and I quote, evolution happens through sweat, not tears. It's about embracing discipline. So now, the next slide. Finally, a good person is always one who respects the rights of their fellow beings as assured by the laws of nature, in the same way that they would wish their own to be respected. And I would like to read the next one as well, please. These are not all the qualities which distinguish a good person, but anyone who tries harder to possess those which have been mentioned will find themselves on the road which leads to all the rest. So, when you try to live by these qualities, not because you have to, but because we truly want to become a better people, we begin to grow in goodness. We begin to grow in goodness. So let's follow this path with your humility and determination, knowing that by respecting others as you want to be respected, we become better people, and you can build a kinder and more understanding world. I would like to share one story between a granddad and a grandson to illustrate a little bit as well about a good person. So the grandson asked, "Granddad, how does one lose their life?" "Life can be lost in many ways, my grandson. We lose it when we live other people's lives instead of our own. We lose it by criticizing others' mistakes instead of improving our own. We lose it when we spend all our time dwelling on our mistakes instead of looking for solutions to overcome them. We lose it when we waste time envying others instead of working to improve ourselves. We lose it when we focus only on the negative and forget to appreciate the good things. So gratitude for what we have and who we are, and the willingness to invest in our own happiness. That is what nourishes the spirit. So focus on the good. We are capable of our inner transformation. Like Jesus said, it's difficult, but it's possible. It's worth it. So that's for today. And I wish you all much peace. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Andrea, and all of those who have been with us, and all of those who later on may also be joining these reflections. And as we're coming to the end of our timing, let's end it together, expressing our gratitude for these unique enlightened moments that we have been granted by the superior beings, by Jesus, by God, who is our Father. And also our gratitude for the Spiritism in our existences, helping us to develop new ways of understanding ourselves or interactions with each other, helping us to reconsider our own limitations, always from a loving inner space. And with our hearts full of gratitude, giving thanks to this unique and special moment, we also may consider to reflect about all of those who may be in pain and suffering on earth, and to prayer, express our love, asking that Jesus may bless them all, wherever they are and with who they are. Whatever they are undergoing, which is transitory and temporary, may you bless them. May you involve them with your light, peace, and love, helping all of those who are departing from earth, returning to the spiritual world, also involving them with the blessings of your peace. At the same time, we also pray for those who are returning to earth, also asking that you may bless them with your light, with your peace and love. And as we are all united through brotherhood, let's also express our love, our tenderness and goodness as good wishes, as goodness for everyone, everywhere, wherever we may be connected spiritually today and always. So be it. So in that way, we once more give thanks to Andrea, which facilitated the team today, and wish you and everyone much peace and hope to see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.